Welcome, everyone. As we welcome you to a very, very interesting daf tonight. Very interesting. We are sponsored by A.B. Spry for Nachas from all his children, by Shalom Fogli and Nishmas Rabbi Yaakov Zeb and Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh, for Mos Rivka Bas Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, Mos Tibia Miriam Bas Rabbi God, and Rabbi Yosef ben Zion ben Rabbi Yaakov Zeb. By Baruch Ian, Lili Nishmas, Yaakov Chaim ben Abba Esther Bas Gittel, Avram ben Shmuel HaKayin, by Yaakov Yamansky with Akos HaTov to the Rav and the Zoom family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren, by Ed Saleh from London, and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual listener. We're going to learn for our Chavar Adaf, Shimon Yehuda ben Gittel should have refuah shalema b'seich shar chayla Yisrael. And we welcome in here this evening, arriving as of now, Saba and Irving Fishbaum. I think that's Menachem Yamansky, Aaron Swade, Eddie Chazan, Chaim Kramer, Mel Zachter, Baruch Ian. And here in Shul, we have Michal Avram. We have Rich Leonard. I think I see Gedalia Engel over there in the corner, and Avram Rezepkowitz. Am I correct? Is Avram there?
I think Avram went home and watched, and there's a gentleman that came by. Avram Shenkman.
Oh, and Avram Shenkman. Oh, Avram, it fills my heart with joy that you're there with us. Thank you very much for joining us. And we welcome in Yitzi Fuchs. And we welcome in Shalom Fogel, Nachman Chapler, Marshall Castle, very dressed up Marshall Castle, Yisrael Fisher, looking snazzy there, Berish Gesseman, Adi Appetite, Ilya Shutman, Moshe Lehman, Naftali Jablin, Yitzi Muller, A. Barbach, Zev, and we welcome David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon, and we are rearing to go over here as we start on the bottom of Daf Zayin Amid Beis, and he said, I have a different reason why the Chachamim do not have to pay the tax for the security of the town. Ki also the comment of Rabbi Yochanan, 2 lines from the bottom of Zayin Amid Beis, why don't you quote the following pasuk? Ani choma, I am a wall, v'shadai kimigdolos, and my breasts are like towers. Ani choma zu Torah. Torah is like a wall of security. V'shadai kimigdolos, and my breasts are like towers. Elu talmidei chacham. These are the Torah sages. Interesting. I would have said that they're considered like breasts because they give milk to their Talmidim. They nurse their Talmidim. But Rabbeinu Gershom, cited in the Art Scroll, says that it's because the Talmidei Chachamim learn from one another, and they, so to speak, nurse from one another. Now, Reish Lakish, who doesn't cite this pasuk, Reish Lakish Savala Kididarish Rava, he interprets this pasuk of Ani Chayma differently, like the way Rava interprets it. Ani Chayma Zu Knesses Yisrael. Ani Chayma, that's referring to Klal Yisrael, who are build a wall of security around themselves from assimilating with the Goyim. In other words, we know it says, Ehein am levodod yishkav. This is a nation that dwells apart, and we build like a wall of separation between us and the Goyim. V'shadai kimigdalos, and my breasts are like towers. Elu bate knisiyos bate midrashes. These are the synagogues and the study halls, which are a source of nourishment for Klal Yisrael. As we welcome in Rabbi Kranz. Welcome Rabbi Kranz as we're just getting underway here on this beautiful Wednesday evening, where we have a triple crown tonight, because I did not get a chance to do the Mishnah Yomis ahead, so we will have the Chumash here, and then also a Mishnah Yomis. So it's a triple crown tonight. Rav Nachman Rav Chisda Rama Karga Arabana. Rav Nachman Bar Rav Chisda levied the skull tax. Karga is a skull tax. It's a tax levied on each head, and it was not used exclusively for security, and therefore he levied it even on the rabbis. Amalei Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, so Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said, by leveling it even on the rabbis, Ovarta adaraisa adnevi vadiksuve, you trespassed and transgressed that which is written in the Torah, in the early Nevi'im, and in the later Ksuvim. Adaraisa dichsiv af chovev amim. Even when the nations are being desired, in other words, even when the nations are riding high, but kol kedoshah biyadecha, your holy ones you keep in your hand. And that's what Amar Moshe Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu said before Hashem, Rebbeinu Shalom, afilu b'shosha ata mechavev amim, even when you're showing a desire and your face is shining on the nations, kol kedoshah you take care of your holy ones. And therefore it's proper that they should be exempt from the Gentiles' taxes. Dehein tuku l'raglecha. Now, tuku, it means they cut their feet. Tani Rav Yosef, Elu Talmidei Chacham. You know, this is before the days. We have to appreciate the magnificence of Torah. Anytime.com and Kol HaLashon and OU and Gat Torah and all the different platforms, because it used to be that if a person wanted to learn from different rabbis, the only way was to travel. So you travel to Radin to learn from the Holy Chavetz Chaim, you travel to Baranovich to learn from Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, then you travel to hear the Shiurim from Rabbi Shimon Shkop, and then you travel to hear Rabbi Baruch Ber, maybe you went to Dvinsk to hear from the Ragachover and from Rameh Simcha. So Elu Talmidei Chacham shemikasis in Ragleim, they cut their feet me'ir le'ir, from city to city, and medina medina, and from province to province, lilmud Torah. Yisa midabrei secha, lisa v'lis litain, to engage in pilpul b'dibroisav shel makom, with the words of Hashem. So you transgress that biblical pasuk. Adoniviyeh, by levying the skull tax on Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. By leveling the skull tax on the rabbis, you transgress what it says in the early prophets, Dichsiv, Gam ki yitnu bagoyim, even when you're delivered into the hands of the Gentiles, Ata akaptzein, now I will gather you, v'yachilu ma'at, and you will be humbled a little, mimasa melech v'sarim, from the burden of the king and the princes. However, we're going to homiletically interpret this pasuk in Aramaic. Amar ula pasuk zeh b'lashon Aramis nemar. This pasuk is to be interpreted as Aramaic, and therefore yitnu gam ki yitnu. Yitnu means to learn Mishnayos. Itanu kulu. If all of you would learn, then ata kapsing. Then I would gather you in and bring the Mashiach right away. V'im'at mehem, and if it's a few of you, but even those, the Rabbanan that learn, yachilu, you will be forgiven, mimasa melech v'sarim, from the burden of the king and the princes and the nobles. So you don't have to give the skull tax. And by levying the skull tax, you also transgress adiksuve, on the later ksuvim, the chsiv. Now this is clearly Aramaic. Minde balu v'halach. Minda balu and halach we'll see as three taxes. Lo shalit lemirma aleihem. The ruling authorities will not have a dominion to put on the rabbis. Amar Rav Yehuda minda zu minas hamelech. This is the portion of taxation of the king. Balu zukef says Gulgulta, that's the skull tax, that's the karga. V'halach zu arnuna, that's a tithe on the animals. Rapapa Rama karya chadita ayasme. Rapapa levied a tax for making a new well for the reservoir on orphans, because they also need to drink. Amalei Rav Sheish Brei Ravidi Rapapa, but wait a second, there's a problem. The Yisayimim, they're minors. Maybe the well, they'll dig it and there won't be water, and they're not able to be meichel. V'dilma loy midvul, maybe they won't strike water. Amalei, so he says, well, we do it with a provision. Mishkol shakin laminai, we take the money for them. Midvul. If we find a water source, good. V'ilai, if not, madrana lei na'alai, we'll return them the money. Rabbi Yehuda kol aglei gapa, everybody has to pay for the closing of the gates. Aglei gapa is the gates of the city. Afilu miyasme, even orphans, they need security. But the rabbis, they don't need protection, so they don't have to chip in for the security of the city. But akol karya pasi, everybody for digging wells, afilu ramabanan, even the rabbis. However, that's only if you're collecting money. But if you're collecting manual labor, that everybody comes out and does a turn of digging, they don't go out and are drafted for manual labor. If it's for manual labor, the rabbis are not drafted to do manual labor. It's not covered to Raschem, and therefore they're exempt. Now we have a famous piece of Agadata. Rebbe Pasach Eitzaros B'Shnei Batzaros. Rebbe opened up his coffers. Rebbe was fabulously wealthy, and he had stores of food. He opened up his private stores B'Shnei Batzaros during a time of famine. Amar, he said, Yikonsu Bali Mikra, let people who learn Chumash come in, Bali Mishnah, people that learn Mishnayos, Bali Gemara, Bali Halacha, people that learn Halachas, Bali Agada, people that learn Homiletics. Aval Ami Oretz Al Yikonsu. But an ignoramus should not come, because he was afraid that he wouldn't have enough supply for everybody. So we know that the world was created for learning Torah, Bereshis bara Elikim B'Shvil Torah Shenikar Reishis, and the Amoritz that shunned any learning of Torah whatsoever, he should not take food which might deprive a person that's learning Torah to have food. Dochak Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram. Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram was a big scholar, a disciple of Rebbe. He disguised himself, and he pushed himself in v'nichnas to get food. Amalai, he said, Rebbe parnaseni, Rebbe support me. Amalai, so Rebbe said to him, B'ni, my child, Karisa, did you learn Chumash? Amalai lav, no. Shanisa, do you learn Mishnayos? Amalai lav. Im kain, if so, b'ma farnesech, how could I support you? I don't have enough storage to support everybody. Amalei, so he said, look, it says, V'rachamov al kol masav ksiv, parneseni kekelev u'ka'erev. At least support me like a dog or a raven. Now, both the dog and the raven is it needs special consideration. The dog, because it does not have much food and it eats very sparingly, and the raven, because the parent of the raven is miserly, and Hashem causes that in the waste, in the feces of the raven should be food. Uvnei orev asher yikro. So Parnasei. So Rebbe gave him food. Basid Nafik, after he left, Yosef Rebbe become a star. Rebbe was aggravated. V'amar oili, woe is me, shenasati piti la'amoritz, I gave to an Amoritz, maybe at the cost of a Talmud Chacham. And the Rishonim say he was especially troubled that maybe he should give him only food that was fit for a dog. Amal Afan Reb Shimon ben Rebbe, Shema Yonasim ben Amram Talmidchu. Maybe that was Yonasim ben Amram, your disciple, and he doesn't want to take credit for his learning. She'ena writes a lahanas mikfay Torah miyamav. He doesn't want to benefit from his learning. It says Hamashtamish b'saga chalif. If somebody uses the crown of Torah for his personal advantage, it's not a good thing. So Bodku v'ashkach. So they searched it out, and they found it was Yonasim ben Amram. So here, Rebbe then was very concerned that maybe other people won't come, other Talmidim Chachamim won't come for this reason, so therefore, Amar Rebbe Yekonsu Akol. Let everybody come. Now, Rebbe, who initially did not want to support the Amma Oretz, Rebbe Litameh, Rebbe goes according to his reasoning. The Amar Rebbe ain't per anas bala olam, retribution only comes to the world, ela bishvil amei haaretz, only because of the ignoramus. Kahu demei klila the shadu atferia. There was the tax of the crown, a very large crown tax that they put on Tveria. So also the Kamrei, the Rebbe, the Amaratzim came before Rebbe, va'amru le'leisvei rabbanim ba'adon, let the rabbis participate. Amalu loy, no, they're not going to. Amalei arukinan, look, if they don't participate, we're going to flee, and then it's going to all fall on them. Amalei aruku, so Rebbe says, flee. Because Rebbe was perfectly convinced that if the Amaratzim would leave, then there wouldn't be a tax. So Orku Palgeyan, half of them fled. Dalyua Palga, so then the crown removed half of the tax. Also, Ano Palga Kame de Rebbe, the other half came before Rebbe. Amalei Leis Rabbanam, let them help. Amaluloi. So then they threatened Arukina, we're going to flee. So he said, Aruku, leave. Orku Kulu, they all fled. Pasa Ukaives. There was left one launderer who was an Amoritz. So Shad Yua HaKovetz, they put the tax on this launderer. So of course, Arakovetz. So the launderer fled. When that happened, Paka Klila. When that happened, they removed the tax. Amarebi Reisim She'em Puranis Balaylam, suffering only comes to the world. Ela B'Shvil Amoritz, Ameyaritz. As we welcome in Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg for our 27th Zoomer of the evening. Avram Sheps is joining us on Facebook. Now, says the Gemara, V'kama yehi be'ir v'yehi ka'anshe ha'ir. How long do you have to be in the city to be considered a resident of the city, to be taxed for the wall and the double doors and the bolt? V'ramini, so the Mishnah says 12 months. V'ramini, achameres v'agameles, a donkey driver and a camel driver, ha'iveres mimakam lamakam, that travels from place to place, v'lona b'seicha, and stayed in the city that went astray after idolatry, v'hotcha imahen, and the camel driver, the wagon driver, the donkey driver also worshipped idolatry. So they're not considered a resident of the Ir Anidachas. The resident of the Ir Anidachas is Xeris HaKosav, that the city that goes astray gets Misa with Sayif, beheading, and their money is destroyed. But this this camel driver and donkey driver is not a resident. So Hain Beskila, they get skila, which is the normal punishment of idolatry, and their money is not destroyed. However, but if they stayed in the city 30 days, then they're considered part of the city. Hain b'sayif, they get beheaded, so you see, it's not 12 months, it's even 30 days. So the Gemara says there's a difference between a citizen of the city or a city dweller. If you want to be a member of the city, that takes 12 months. If you want to be a dweller in the city, that takes 30 days. if you vow that you won't benefit from a citizen of the city, if he lived there 12 months, less than 12 months, mutter. But if you vow not to have benefit from a dweller of the city, if he spent there 30 days, you can't benefit from him. Less than that, mutter. Says the Gemara, to be considered a resident of the city, do you need 12 months? Vatanya, there was a community plate that people put in food every day, and it was passed around to the very poor, and they would eat from the community plate. Then there was a pushka that money was given to homeowners once a week before Shabbos. So, shloishim yom l'tamchul. If you're in the city 30 days, you have to give to the community plate. Shloish chadashim, if you're there 3 months, you have to give l'kupa, to the charity box. Shisha l'ksus, if you're there 6 months, you have to give for the clothing gemach. Tisha l'kvura, if you're there 9 months, you have to help the Chevra Kadisha. Shneim aser l'pasiyah, if you're there 12 months, then you have to help for the security of the city, for the boards, for the gate and the walls, etc. Yes, our Mishnah is talking about security. 12 months, that's just talking about for security. 9 months is for the Chevra Kadisha, 6 months is for the clothing, the bath, etc. Everybody has to participate in the security. But the rabbis don't, because the Rabbanan don't need that security. Their Torah is their security. Amra Papa, L'shura, for the city wall, Ula Parsha, and for a horseman that circles the city to watch it, Ula Tarzina, and an armed guard, that's Tur Zina, watching with a weapon. That's afilu miyasme. Aval Rabbanan, but the rabbis don't have to participate because like tzrichim tirusa, they don't need protection. Klolo de milsa, that's the general principle. Kol milsa dislu hanomine, where there's a benefit like the reservoir, afilu miyasme. Rabba Rama Tzedakah Yasme. Rabba levied charity on orphans, the Beit Bar Morion. Says the Gemara, but Amalei Abaye Vatani Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Ein Paiskin Stuck Ali Yisayimim. We don't levy charity on orphans, afilu lepidyon shmuyim, even for the great mitzvah of redeeming captives. Amalei, so he says we do things to benefit the Yisayimim. Their father was a wealthy man and got a lot of prestige in the town because he gave tzedakah, and we want the Yisayimim to continue to have that prestige. I'm doing it that they should have prestige and a good name, so it's for their benefit. Ifra Hormuz, who was Imei de Shavar Malka, who was the mother of the Persian king, Shavar Malka, Shadra Arnike de Dinare, Lekamid Rav Yosef, she sent a purse of golden dinare before Rav Yosef. Amra, she said, Lahave la mitzvah rabba. You should use it for a great mitzvah. So now the question is, what's a great mitzvah? So Yosef Rav Yosef become a ayimba, and he was ma'ayin at my mitzvah rabba. Of course, the first thing you would think is for habatzas Torah. Talmud Torah is keneged kulam. Amalei Abaya Miditani Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Since Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda said, "Ein Paiskin tzedakah al Yisayimim," we don't levy tzedakah on orphans. Afilu lepidyon shvuyim, even for redemption of captives. So it must be that that's the pinnacle, that's the zenith. Shma minah, from that we could conclude that pidyon shvuyim, the redemption of the redemption of the poor, is wow, I didn't put on the and put on the opinion Shvuya Mitzvah Rabbi. Okay, at least they'll have something. I'm putting on the recorder late over here, but at least they'll have a half a daf.
Start over, right?
Huh?
Start over?
No. Marshall, you could call Marshall later if you want the first part. The Chicago suffered a loss of a tzaddik today, Marshall.
Yesterday, I think, Sunday.
The Ziddich of a Rebbe, right? Rav Eichenstein. Yeah.
That's a big one. Right.
Yeah, he had a very, very kind face. I saw that.
He was a very, very kind person.
You knew him personally?
I did.
Was he old?
Yeah. Old, but he's been very sick for quite a few years.
I mean, he was over 80?
I believe so.
I was in Chicago and I knew his father, and we have a Rabbi Atkinson here also in Baltimore.
Well, his neshama should have a great aliyah. Should be a Melz Yeshua on Chicago and all of Klal Yisrael.
Amen.
So Amalei Rabbi Bar Mori. Rabbi said to Rabbi Bar Mori, Minoha Milsa da Amar Rabbanan. How do we know that which the rabbis say, the Pidyon Shvuyim Mitzvah Rabbi? That Pidyon Shvuyim is a great mitzvah. Amalei Dichsiv, V'haya ki yomru eilecha. The pasuk says, this was Yirmiyah said, V'haya ki yomru eilecha, and they say to you, Hashem said to the Navi, when they say to you, Ana Neitzeh, what's going to happen to us? V'amart aleim, you should say to them, Kayam Hashem, Asher lamavas lamazmas. Those that will go to natural death will naturally die. V'asher lecherev lecherev. Those that will die by the sword will die by the sword. V'asher lerav lerav. And those that will die by famine will die by famine. V'asher lashvi lashvi. And those that will go to captivity will go to captivity. Whatever is mentioned later is a worse fate. So you see that being a captive is the worst fate. Cherev kashim emaves, sword is worse than natural death. Iba yisem a krab, iba yisem a svara. It's either a pasuk or it's logical. Iba yisem a svara, it's logical. Haikam anavel. If a person is cut by a sword, it also disfigures his body. Haikam anavel. A person that dies a normal death is not disfigured. Viba yisem a krab. Yokar be'enei Hashem, it is precious in the eyes of Hashem. Hamavsala chasidav, when his chasidim die a natural death. Rav kashimei charev, famine is worse than the sword. Iba yisei mesvara. Either it's logical, because haikam it star. Famine is a slow death that causes pain. V'haikam it star, and the sword is a quick death without prolonged tsar. Iba yisei makra. Or it's a pasuk, toivim hayu chalei cherev, more favorable are the corpses from the sword, mechalei rav, and the corpses of the famine. Shvi kasher mikulam, captivity is worse than them all. The kulu isnube, because it contains everything. First of all, when a person is hungry, he has a chance to die from natural causes because he's weakened, and there's also when a person is a captive, they might kill him by the sword, and they might torture him and hold back food, so it contains everything. Tan Rabbana. Now, some more laws of tzedakah. We're about to embark on very, very important Gemaras about tzedakah. This is famous Agadita Gemaras coming up over here. We're at a very, very enjoyable part of Shas, and as I say many times to my Talmidim, this is the way it works. When you learn Daf Yomi, you have hard periods of Gemara, and then you have very enjoyable periods of Gemara. So there's different sections of Gemara. As I'm addressing over here are 29 Zoomers. Mark is not with us tonight. He would have been the 30th, and
He's picking up my bourbon.
he would have been the 30th, and we're missing a few other people over here this evening. But anyway, it's good to have everybody. Richard Rosenzweig has just come on to join us, so there he is. And Richard, we are on Chesamid Beis, and we have a full, exciting evening ahead of us this evening, as we have a delicious chumash here. We got a bracha from Rabbi Yisrael last night that it would be a good share. So I did spend many hours today preparing it. So anyway, says the Gemara, as we see, Tan Rabbanan, Kupa Shel Tzedakah, the charity box is Nigvis B'shnayim. It has to be collected with two people. It has to be divvied out every Friday with three people. Nigvis B'shnayim, it has to be collected by two people. She'ein oisim sroros al tzibur, because you don't do any domination on the tzibur pachas mishnayim. And since we will see that they could be memashkinin al tzedakah, they could take pledges for charity if a person doesn't give what he should be giving, so it can't be less than two. It's divided by three. They have to determine what family deserves what. So kedinei mamanis, like any financial matter, which you need a bezdin of three. Tamchui nigvis b'shloisha, the community dish is collected with three, or mischalekes b'shloisha. Now, really, it doesn't need to be collected with three, but since it's given the same day, so they have three people already gather it, and three people give it out. Shegvuya v'chiluka shavan, because its collection and doling out is on the same day. Tamchi b'chol yaim, as we said, the charity plate, the plate that's passed around, is passed around every day. Kupa me'erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos, the pushka is every Friday. Tamchi l'aniyei olam, the soup kitchen, so to speak, is for anybody that's in the town, that passes through the town, even the poor from outside of this town. But kupa, the stipend every Friday, that goes l'aniyei to the poor of the city. V'rashoyim b'nei ha'ir la'asais kupa tamchi. The b'nei ha'ir, if there is a very large influx of people coming into the town, they could divert money from the charity box to build up the soup kitchen, tamchi kupa, and if they have extra stuff in the charity plate, they could sell it and put it in the charity box. They could also divert it for any community purpose that they want to. V'rashoyin b'nei ha'ir, and this is now the tuvei ha'ir. The heads of the city are allowed lahasnois al amidos, if they want to change a measure, they want to make it bigger. V'al ha'sha'orim, and they could make a limit on prices, like a limit on how much you could charge for an esrik. V'al schar poyalim, they could make a limit on how much workers could charge. Ulasiya al kitzasan, and they could also levy fines if the merchants don't keep these rules. You cannot dominate over the tzibur in the collection of tzedakah with less than two people. How do we know this? When they collected for the Mishkan, it says they, and miyat rabim mishnayim. It's because they can't rule over the tzibur. They can't show too much authority over the tzibur. But we would believe even one person. We would trust even one person. Two brothers to collect for the charity box. Now, two brothers only have an emunis like one person. So you see, it's not because of trust. It's because of you don't dominate over the tzibur with less than two people. Now, Maisra Rusa, what is the domination? The Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua, for Rav Nachman said in the name of Rabba Baravua, Lefishim Amashkin al tzedakah. We take pledges for tzedakah, v'afilu me'erev Shabbos. And even if it's Friday, when people are very, very busy, we take pledges even on Friday. Says the Gemara, Ini, v'aksivu f'kariti al kol loichatzav. I will visit retribution on all of the oppressors. When it says al kol loichatzav, we see that people that collect charity could be considered oppressors. Says if they take a pledge from a rich person who could afford it, that's a good thing. If they seize from a person that can't afford it, that's considered oppression. Like Rava forced Rav Nasim Bar Ami, 400 zuz to tzedakah. So you see a person that could afford it, we could force them to give. Says the pasuk, v'amaskilim, those who are smart, Yashiru, they will have a shine, kizoyer rakia, like the shine of the sky. So what does this mean? Zed dayan shedon din emes la'amita. This is a judge who rules a true judgment in truth. Now what does that mean? A din emes la'amita, that he rules a true judgment in truth. This means that the judge he's not satisfied to go by the letter of the law. Look, two witnesses say it, al pi shnayim eidim yakum davar. Next case, no. If his nose smells that something stinks in Denmark, then he'll continue to plummet it and examine it. That's a din emes la'amitai. Umatstike harabim, and those that make the public righteous, are like stars forever. Elu gabayit tzedakah, because the charity collectors cause a lot of people to do mitzvahs. But Mesnisatana, in a Braisa, it's taught, V'amaskilim, those that are wise, Yasiru Kizar Akir will shine like the sky. Zedayin Shedon Dim Emesamita, Vigabayit Tzedakah. That's a judge that rules truthfully, and charity collectors. Umatstike Arabim, and those that make the public righteous, Kikaychavim La'ilam Vad, like stars forever. Elu Malamdei Tinakis. These are the elementary school teachers. There's a famous vart here from Rapam, a really beautiful thought from Rapam. Rabbi Reisman made this vart popular. Rapam said that when we see a star in the sky, we're not seeing it now, because it takes light time to travel to us. So when we're seeing it now, the star might not be there anymore. It might have supernovaed already. Right? So we're seeing it on a delayed reaction, because it takes light time to travel. Rapam said, a school teacher, he says things to the Talmidim that might not make an impact on them at the time. But later on in life, they will benefit from the lessons that the teacher taught them. And if you look back to your good Rebbeim, you could see that this is true. That maybe initially when they taught it, you weren't mature enough to listen and to register it. But you heard it enough times that it made an impact later on in life. Says the Gemara, what's an example of a dedicated school teacher? Kigain man, like whom? Amar Rav Kigain Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, like the great school teacher Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. Now I said on my own that the interesting name Shilas stands for Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summon. Remember, Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei, so Shin Yud Lamed Zav is Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summon. Now I said that on my own, but my brother Yitzchak once sent me a text with a source that one of the earlier Meforshim, I don't remember what, said this as well. So Baruch Hashem. Now, how dedicated was Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas? The Rav Ashkechei Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas Davikoi Beginsa. Rav found Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas sitting in a garden. He was surprised. Amalei Shvakte Lehem Nusach. Have you abandoned your trust? You're not with your Talmidim? Amalei, so he said, it's been 13 years that I indulged in this garden. V'hashtanami, and now, even though I didn't enjoy it for 13 years, daite alvai, I still have my mind on the Talmidim. Says the Gemara, okay, so that's the school teachers and the charity collectors and the judges with integrity, but what about Rabbanan Mai? What about the rabbis that study Torah? Oh, they're like the sun. Amar Ravina v'ohavav. Those that love him, ketzeitza shemesh b'gvurasai. They're like the sun going out in its might. Tan Rabbanan. Gaboit staka einon rashayin lifrei zemezeh. They're supposed to be together. They can't separate. But they could separate if they see each other. So one could go to the gate of a house and one could go into a store. If the charity collector finds money, now he could find his keepers. But when he's in front of people, he shouldn't put it in his pocket, because people will think he's surreptitiously taking some charity money. He should count it, put it in the charity purse, or when he gets home, privately he should take it. In other words, he should be worried about Marasai. If, let's say, Marshall owed him money, or Pro Bashuk, and Marshall comes and pays him, he shouldn't put it in his pocket. People will think that he's taking tzedakah money and pocketing it. He puts it in the pushka, or when he gets home, he takes out the money that Marshall paid him. Tan Rabbana. Gaboy tzedakah, a charity collector, he doesn't have money. Poor people, we should always have this problem. He doesn't have anybody poor to give the money to. So now he doesn't want to keep the money as copper coins, because they'll tarnish and they'll erode. So he wants to change it into silver coins. Parton la'cherim, he lets other people exchange it. The ain parton la'atzman, he doesn't exchange it himself. He doesn't want people saying that he didn't give a fair exchange. Similarly, Gabay Tamchi she'ein la'hem aniyim l'chalik, the one who is in charge of the community plate, and there's no poor people to eat the chicken cutlets and the farfel, he could sell it to others, but not to himself. Not to himself. They ain't because he doesn't want people to say he's giving himself a good rate. Finally, money of charity, when the charity collector comes home, he shouldn't count them in twos. Like he takes 2 quarters and he says 1, and another 2 quarters 2, and then of course he knows he's counting 50 cents at a time. But he shouldn't do that, because people might think that he'll shortchange the charity. Ella achas achas, he should count 1 quarter at a time. Okay, we'll stop over here, Rabbi Yisrael. Just getting underway on this beautiful Wednesday evening, as now we're going to do the Chumash here first,